Hello, this is Broyar, and welcome to a first impressions video for the Rulers of China pack, which is part of the Leader Pass that has come out recently. I have not had an opportunity to do the Ruler of China pack. I got pretty busy when they announced it, so I just kind of put it on the back burner. However, at the time that I'm recording this, in about 4 days, we will be getting the Rulers of Sahara pack. So I want to go ahead and get this one out so that I can go ahead and start recording some of those at that time. This one's going to be a combo video, primarily because all the leaders from this pack are from the same country. So without having to repeat a lot of same information over and over again, I figured we'd just combo it all together and just talk about the differences. Before me, you could see this would actually be a very interesting game. Who's the best China? I have all of the Chinese leaders in here, including the two that have come before. The very first leader that we got as part of Civilization 6 was Qin Shi Huang. I'm going to say these names improperly, so just bear with me. Which is now called the Mandate of Heaven leader. His bonus is the first emperor. Actually, let me back up a little bit. Let's talk about China for a second and kind of give you a kind of a rundown of the strengths and weaknesses of China itself. That way we can talk about how each of these leaders really plays into the Chinese bonuses and kind of the pros and cons there as well. So China, their main civilization ability is called Dynastic Cycle. This is probably the strongest part of all of this, quite frankly. Their Eurekas and Inspirations provide 50% of civics and technologies instead of 40%. When completing a wonder, receive a random Eureka and Inspiration from the era of the wonder, if available. So another way to get Eurekas and Inspirations, as well as more boost to Eurekas and Inspirations. So to kind of break that down a little bit, if you were to have a technology that costs 100 XYZ, or like a technology or a culture thing costs 100, either science or culture, right? And you were to get 40%, that means you have 60 points left to gain. If you're going to get 50% as China, you only have 50 points to gain. So in the same amount of time that it takes you to get 50, the other people have to get 60. So you can almost think of it as China gets that 60. They just got to get it down for free, which is a 20% increase in both culture and science. If you follow my math at all, I don't know. I apologize if you didn't. But basically, that extra 10 that you're getting out of that 100, using my example, is 20% of the total that you have to get, which is 50 to begin with. So China gets 20% boost if they get all Eurekas and Inspiration, which obviously it's not going to happen all the time. But for every Eureka and Inspiration they can get, that's a 20% science or culture boost, which is honestly bigger than just about any other civilization in the game. There's a few other civilizations to get, that 20 range. There's, I think, a couple to get 15%, things like that. 20% for both of those is a pretty big deal. Now, again, there's a stipulation that you do have to get those Eurekas and Inspirations, but they have another way to get both of those with building wonders. So take that. That's one thing. Good on culture, good on science. Yay, China. The next thing they have is called the Crouching Tiger. Now, this is their unique unit. In my opinion, this is a terrible unique unit. I probably would never build more than one of these. Now, I could see an argument, a way to use these in some form or fashion, but I just personally would prefer to have a less powerful, longer range crossbow or bombard, if I'm going to go that route, than this Crouching Tiger unit. You can't pre-build these, so you can't like build up, slingers, archers, and kind of get some promotions into them before you get to the crossbow and things like that. You have to build them when they come live. And that one range is, in my opinion, too hard of a restriction to make them worthwhile to me. So that's my beef with them, is the range. Now the strength obviously is fine. 50 strength versus 40 of the crossbowman, 60 for a field cannon, for example. So it's right there in the middle of both of those. Good strong unit, don't get me wrong. But the one range, in my opinion, is too much of a deal breaker. I would only build the one personally to get my bonus, and that would just sit there in some city, probably in my capital, just because it's probably the least likely to get attacked. So I don't think this is very strong. It doesn't really bode well for China winning a domination victory based on their unique unit, although they could win a domination victory based off some other things. But the unique unit itself, I think, is pretty weak. Then we get the Great Wall. Great Wall is a pretty cool and a very unique builder ability here. It allows them to build a wall around their borders, right? Obviously, you kind of want to probably wait until your borders expand a little bit, because if you do it too early on, then you're kind of locked into this small area, and you only have a small number of Great Wall tiles that you've put in place. But if you get it a little bit larger, then you can really fill out all that extra space with these Great Wall tiles and really get the bonuses here. Now, the bonuses are pretty good, actually. Not only do you get an increase to defense, which will help you defend your awesome little empire, but the Great Wall tile itself gets 2 gold, and then for every tile that's on either side of it, it adds 2 gold to that middle tile. So if you have 3 tiles in a row, the left and the right both get 4 gold, and the one in the middle gets 6 gold. And then as you add more and more, those ones that are in the middle continue to go up to that 6 gold mark and stuff like that. Additionally, you do get culture and tourism as you advance through the technologies. And I believe the maximum culture that you would get would be 4 culture per Great Wall tile, which then becomes 4 tourism per Great Wall tile. So that's 6 gold, 4 culture, 4 tourism, a little bit of defense. Can only be pillaged by natural disasters, never destroyed. It's not bad. All in all, this is actually a pretty useful builder ability, tile improvement. I think it's a very, like I said, very unique visually for sure. And I could definitely see a lot of ways to make this work for a culture victory with all that gold and that culture. You're going to be able to push the tourism, things like that, and use the gold to buy, great works or the great people themselves. You could also use this obviously for just about any other victory, because again, that gold can really help you get anything you need for any victory type, just about, maybe with the exception of religion. I mean, there's not much there for religion, but domination, you can use the gold to buy units. You can use the gold to buy, admirals and great generals, things like that. You could use the gold to upgrade your units, all that kind of stuff. Culture always is good for any victory type, because even though culture is primarily for a culture victory, all the victory types have something in the culture tree that gives them benefit, right? So you still want that culture coming in, so that's going to help you there. Like I said, the gold's going to help you it can help you with science, because you can buy builders to help you rush things in the late game. There's so many different ways to go about it. Great Wall is great for all victory types, again, probably except for a religion victory. So China itself is well situated for science victory, just from the get-go. They're well situated for a culture/tourism victory, and kind of tangentially, good for maybe a domination victory, just looking at China by itself, right? So, they could do a diplomacy because of all that extra gold. You could find a way to, finish a bunch of, the little things that pop up that people ask for help. I forget what those are called, but where they get you extra diplomacy points if you finish those. I mean, the gold can help you with that. That's kind of more of a side effect, if anything. So I really think it's those main 3, with science probably being the number 1. That's without even looking at the leader abilities at all. So let's go back to the leader abilities for a second. I know this video is going to be a little bit long, but there's 3 leaders to talk about here. And we're going to talk about these other 2 just to kind of lead into them. So first, again, we had Chen Shi Shuang of the currently called the Mandate of Heaven leader. And his thing is, when building ancient and classical wonders, you may spend builder charges to complete 15% of the original wonder cost. Builders receive an additional charge, which is awesome. That's going to help you all throughout the game, not just for this early part. And then canals are unlocked with the masonry technology. So getting canals a little bit early, okay, whatever. We'll throw that to the side. That's nifty. That's not really like game breaking. But the builder charge is a really big deal. And then being able to use those builder charges to complete parts of a wonder. Let's put it this way: if you set yourself up properly with a way to build a lot of builders, there's not a lot of early game wonders, ancient and classical wonders, that he's not going to be able to build. You're even on deity difficulty, you're going to be able to beat a lot of the AI to a lot of these wonders pretty early on. So that's a pretty huge deal, especially considering, again, that you're going to get a lot of eurekas and inspirations from these wonders that you're building, at least in the ancient and classical eras. So that's going to be helpful there for sure. So I would say this version of a Chinese leader, he's going to be very good for a tourism victory, because he's going to be able to put a lot of early wonders down. Those are going to be able to build up a lot of tourism over the course of the game. And of course, those extra builders, well, I guess the extra builder charges early on, like I said, will help you get those wonders out. So I would say he's going to be good for a tourism victory. He's also good for a science victory, because like I mentioned earlier, late game, when you're buying builders to help rush your space parts and things like that, he's got those extra charges on those builders to help with that as well. So could be good for both of those. And there's a lot of good early wonders that help with science later on as well. So kind of take that into account. So I think he'd be good for both of those. And honestly, he's a strong leader. I don't have anything against him, again, except the Crouching Tiger unit itself. I think this version of China is a pretty good setup all in all. Then we got Kublai Khan that came out. Obviously, there's 2 Kublai Khans. There's one for Mongolia and one for China. This is the Chinese version. And he gives you 1 extra economic policy slot in any government. That's big. That is really big. and receive a random Eureka and inspiration when establishing a trading post in another civilization city for the first time. So he's going to go around and for however many other civilizations there are, let's say in this particular game, there's only 4 other civilizations, all 4 China. He'll get 4 extra Eurekas and inspirations for those 4 trade posts that he puts with each of those. If you're doing like a standard size game where it's like 8 people, then he can get 7 Eurekas and inspirations. So he's going to get a lot of Eurekas and inspirations, just like the first version, like Chin was able to do with his wonders. This guy's going to be able to do them with his trading posts and get a few of those. Now, it is limited, again, to the number of players, -1, because obviously you can't send it. Well, I assume you can't send it to yourself. Yeah, it says another civilization. I don't think it counts for yourself. So he is going to be able to get a lot of those Eureka's inspiration, which is going to help him along. But he still suffers from the weakness of the Crouching Tiger, but he does get the benefit of the Great Wall improvement. All in all, he's a pretty good one. That economic policy slot is probably the strongest part of all of this, because you can get Eureka's and inspiration on your own. Getting them for free is fine, is nice, but you might get one for free that you were going to get on your own anyway. So, and sometimes it can be kind of a waste, right, to have that bonus. It's good for those ones that you just didn't want to bother with. Go, yeah, okay, you're in the middle of a landmass and you don't have anything on the coast. Well, if you can get a Eureka or inspiration for some of the ship-based technologies and things like that, then okay, that saves you something, right? But overall, it's not too hard to get Eureka's and inspirations on your own. So I would say that that part of the bonus is not huge. It does play well with the China bonus, but it's not huge. I think it's really his real big thing is the economic policy slot in any government, because that can be a wild card. That can be literally anything. There's so many good economic policy things that, I mean, he could plug in and just keep permanently the builder charge, and he's got the same builder charges that the first guy had. And of course, he doesn't get to use them for wonders, so I don't know if that's as helpful. But there's I guess, a complete, anything with this guy. So he still gets the benefit of being a good science and culture civilization. Again, going back to the China thing, and he can still do domination because gold can buy you just about any military you want. And again, the economic policy slot's going to help you with whatever victory type you start with. So he's pretty universal and pretty well rounded. So those are those first 2 guys. Again, I just realized I spent a lot of time talking about them. Then we get to the new Chin. This guy is called the Unifier. And in my opinion, just a brief look at all of these, my least favorite of all 5 of these leaders. His melee units receive the Convert Barbarian action. This is one that's similar to the, Apostles can get this as well. This action converts barbarians into your units, but it removes the melee unit. So melee unit. So let's say you have a warrior. It has a convert barbarian action. You can go up to another barbarian, hit that button, and it'll convert that unit to yours, but you lose the warrior. So if you went up to a single warrior, then you would just basically be moving your warrior 1 tile over. Like, it really, there's nothing happens there. You lose a warrior, you gain a warrior, you're done. And I'm assuming that new warrior probably has a new charge. I would imagine, because you haven't used it yet. Where it comes into play, obviously, is where you can get into a position where you can be surrounded by barbarians, where you can really milk the spawning of barbarian encampments, especially some of those ones around horses, where you can get the cavalry and you can get the horse archers, getting those early on and getting swarmed by those. I mean, you've seen me play many games where I get swarmed by those. Stick a little melee unit out there, convert 5, 6 of those all at once. I mean, technically, you could do as many as 6, I guess. And yeah, sure. Again, you lose that melee unit, the warrior, the whatever it is, but you get a lot of units in return. Problem is, barbarians are kind of a limited commodity to some degree as the game progresses and as the map grows out. As you get that fog of war pushed out, you start to get less and less of those barbarian encampments. Now, if you find one on some remote island somewhere, I've seen plenty of times where there was some island off in the middle of nowhere that was just swarming with barbarian units because nobody was out there to touch it. It just kept spawning them. And maybe it got triggered by something at one point and just started spawning them. Yeah, you can send a unit over there, get a whole bunch of units. Cool. Sometimes they are very advanced units because the barbarian units do keep up with the advancements of kind of the rest of the civilizations to some degree. I mean, I just recently in a game I was playing, I'm sitting on privateers and the barbarians have a battleship. Yeah, converting a battleship would be amazing. And presumably this will allow you to convert ship-based units as well, if you can reach them now again. Some of those late game ship units might not be right against the coast. You have to get really lucky for that. But some of the early game ones will be hugging the coast, and you might be able to get you an early ship that you don't have to build yourself. So there are some cool benefits here. All in all, though, I could take it or leave it. Could it give you an early game rush for your closest neighbor? Sure, it could. And yeah, obviously, once you start rushing early game, you can start snowballing and go from there. It's fine. It's great. Don't get me wrong, but I don't particularly like this ability. I think it's kind of and then you might get into a situation where it's actually completely useless, right? Unless you are in a good situation where you can milk a barbarian encampment. If you've got city-states around you that are just conquering those barbarian encampment and clearing those out before you can even get to them, you're basically a dead leader. Like there's no benefit from your leader whatsoever beyond that. So I'm not a huge fan of this one. Then we get Wu Zetian. And again, I apologize for saying this improperly. I know it is. Her thing is Manual of Entrapment. All offensive spy operations are at one level higher. Whenever an offensive spy mission is successful, you also gain 50% of the culture and science that the target city earned that turn. Receive a free spy and extra spy capacity after discovering defensive tactics. So she gets an extra spy. Spies are great. They operate at one level higher, so you can either skip the whole establishing the not the listening post, the whatever it's called, the first thing you do to kind of give you an initial boost already. And my mind is blanking on what it's called. You guys know what I'm talking about though. You can kind of sometimes skip that and just jump right into like, go siphon some gold or something like that to get you some promotions rolling. Or you can obviously do that and then you still have the one level higher and be able to do even more advanced stuff. So getting one level higher is great. Now there is a limit. You can only go as high as 90% on a success rate. And so eventually once you get your spies maxed out, this bonus kind of becomes worthless, but the one level higher does give them a better chance to get to that higher promotion because they're less likely to get captured or killed or anything like that or discovered and stuff like that. So it's a great ability. I actually like this ability a lot. And then being able to target cities where you can just go do, it just as an offensive spy operation, a spy mission. It doesn't say what it has to be. It could be something basic. It can be anything. I mean, you can go do that siphon gold like I talked about, which has got a pretty high success rate in a big city that maybe doesn't have a lot of gold, but it's producing a lot of culture and science and give you a big chunk of culture and science back home. I think that's a really cool ability. I actually like this ability a lot. I think it'd be a lot of fun to play around with. This would give you, this is a pretty good one for, I mean, again, going back to China's strengths, science and culture, she can help play into that pretty easily. But she could also play into maybe like a diplomacy victory because she could start flipping a lot of city-states and help you get that with the extra spy capacity, the extra operation at level higher, things of that nature. I think it's pretty decent. I mean, it's not terrible. I don't think it's quite as good as Qin or Kublai Khan's. I say that. I think these two are more universal. I think hers is a little bit more kind of like fun to play around with, but I don't know. I could win an entire game without using a single spy. Let's put it that way. But spies do help you if you can use them. So I think the spy, if you have a specific targeted way of using them, great. It's going to be awesome. I would have loved to have her ability in my most recent England game that you guys can go watch because I'm using spies in that one. But there you go. So she's kind of interesting. And then finally we have Zhongli, I think is how they say it on the video that I just watched. His thing is all cities receive projects where they can convert 50% of their production into food, faith, or 100% if it is gold. Cities with 10 or more population receive +2 gold, +1 science, +1 culture per turn for each population in the city, which does mean it has to be 10 population or higher, right? But as soon as you hit 10 population, you're suddenly getting 20 gold, 10 science, and 10 culture from that city. Obviously, he's a guy that wants to build tall. You want to build tall with this guy. That's great. His ability to convert production into food is going to allow him to go tall quicker than a lot of the other versions. But obviously, you got the faith and the gold thrown in there as well, so to give you a little bit of flexibility. He's the only one that's got any sort of religion boost at all, really, with that extra faith thrown in there. So there's that, I guess. That's kind of cool. And then, of course, the gold. I mean, it's always nice to have the ability to get gold. Of course, you can get gold with some of the other projects now, with like the one for the commercial hub or the one for the harbor. I'm assuming this is going to be more since it's just gold and it's not going to give you the points for those respective great people. So I haven't looked at the math, but I think this one's a little bit more. But all in all, I actually kind of like his ability. I think he would actually be a lot of fun to play as. Truth be told, if I were to look at all 5 of these, I think he might be... I actually kind of like him the most in a lot of ways. I like the idea of getting tall cities and just getting a lot of really good yields from those cities. And again, he's getting gold, he's getting science, and he's getting culture. That's your 3 things that you need to win just about any victory type, really. He's still also very universal. We already talked about China's universal abilities with their Eurekas and the Eurekas and inspirations for the culture and the science there. We also talked about the Great Wall giving you gold and culture. again, this guy plays right into that where he can win just about any victory type because he can go any direction. He's going to get science, he's going to get culture, whatever you want to go for. He can grow tall, like I said. He can even throw in that faith, like I mentioned. So I actually think he's going to be a really good, fun leader to play as. Pretty strong overall. And again, definitely, if I were to rank these, I would put Chin the Unifier in last place, in my opinion. That's just me. You guys might have a different opinion. If you like early game rushes, maybe you put him first. I don't know. I don't think those are that much fun. And honestly, you have to get the right situation for that to work half the time. And if you don't, what are you going to do? Re-roll the game, I guess? I guess you can. So in my opinion, he's last place. I would say Wu Zetian is in fourth place. I think her ability could be strong in certain situations, but I actually like the flexibility of the other three quite a bit more. Between these other ones, I think this guy's first. I think he's got a lot of good strengths, although I do think Chin has some extremely good strengths as well. So I think he's first, and it really comes down to these two guys between which is second and third. And I would have to I might put Kublai Khan second. He honestly could be challenging for first because of that extra economic policy slot just gives you so much flexibility. But I do think that his 20 gold, 10 science, 10 culture for each of his 10 plus cities plus higher, if he's got more population, is just going to be stronger than economic policy slot. Now, the economic policy slot comes from the very beginning of the game. You have to wait a while till you can get some 10 pop cities, but I do think this guy might be the best Chinese leader, in my opinion, with Kublai Khan probably second, Mandate of Heaven Chin in third, Wu Zetian, and then Chin the Unifier in last place. That's my list. Pretty long episode. I apologize, but again, 3 different leaders. Technically, I talked about all 5 leaders in this particular video, so I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Again, apologies for the lateness of this video as far as this came out a couple weeks ago. I just hadn't had a chance to get around to it. But yeah, like I said, let me know what you think in the comments of which one do you think is the strongest? Which one would you prefer? Which one's the most fun? Sometimes the strongest doesn't mean the most fun, right? Like you might like the ability of one, even if it's a kind of a weak ability, you know? So I mean, Chin the Unifier could be a fun ability. Go just mass a massive army of just barbarian units all over the place and go have some fun with it. Yeah, that's fun. Again, very, very specific, very targeted, very limited in a lot of ways. And you really have to set yourself up just to make sure that's right. And again, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. If you don't get it at the very beginning, if you got a lot of city-states clearing out those barbarian encampments, you may have to just re-roll the game to kind of get that perfect start that you want to be able to take advantage of him. So could be fun, but again, I don't think it's the strongest. So there we go. I do think this would be a really fun game to see. I might do this at some point. A full China game. It would be kind of crazy. If nothing else, I would love to see this just to see the walls. The Great Walls everywhere. Every civilization will have Great Walls around them. I think that would be a lot of fun to watch. But there we go, guys. I do appreciate you guys watching. May God bless you, and I really do hope you join me again next time. Like I said, in a couple days, I'll be doing the Rulers of the Sahara. We'll see those here in a bit. Thank you, and goodbye. I wanted to give a special shout out to the following channel members. Thank you so much for supporting the channel.